Now we're live. Hey everybody, Yago Roy here. All things Roy, and we're looking at activating the third eye chakra. And this is the fourth session, 4 of 6, and we're going to look tonight at activating insight and activating insight through the 4 states of consciousness. No doubt, I'll say a lot. Is the one simple thing that I'll keep talking around is insight itself. And the simple way to describe that is insight itself. And the simple way to describe that is insight itself. My own phone. Okay. Panic. Okay, sorted now. So the one thing I'm going to be talking around is insight. So everything's going to be related to that. And a simple way to describe it is to experience insight, we need to see how 2 things come together that we hadn't seen before. And when you see how 2 things come together that you hadn't seen before, is it creates something new. So you're seeing something new. And that newness is insight. It'd be no different than you're in a posture and you learn how to ground your shoulders in shoulder stand. And you hadn't really got that before. And then you got the connection between your shoulders on the floor more clearly. And you got the insight, the clarity of that. So that's a simple way to describe an insight. It'd be a way that you recognize, you might be looking at yourself in a situation and you see something new in the pattern of your behavior, something you hadn't seen before. And then that's an insight because it's your behavior and then it's in a situation. A simple example is somebody passes comment that got very patient, and you may not have recognized that you were that patient. And then when they say it, you go, you get it in your own mind. You go, yeah, I actually get that. And you can begin to recognize then how patient you are. And then you can begin to engage in that patience more, or engage in the connection between your shoulders and the floor. And the more you engage in that insight is the more you're bringing that insight to life. And as you bring that insight to life, it then becomes a living wisdom. You're living the insight. As opposed to, you can have an insight and you go, oh, that's a lovely insight. Let me just put that away somewhere. And I mean, it's like photographs. We can have a photo book of all our best memories, all our favorite insights, and they're all tucked away in the drawer, but yet they're not really being activated. So if we're going to activate an insight, is then we have to be able to hold it in a place where we can keep it engaged. And again, that means being centered with it, is being able to hold it in a place that is constant within us. So we need to recognize that place of constant within us, yeah? And then within that constant, we need to be able to recognize the difference between, bookmark that I said constant, because I'm going to bring this up again, yeah? And then within that insight and living the experience of it, is we need to be able to live the reality of it rather than the illusion of it. So a simple example with the shoulders is that the shoulders connected to the floor, and that grounding is that we want to live that direct experience. Is we don't want to be thinking our shoulders are on the floor when they're not, and we think we're doing it but we're not doing it. So then it's not real anymore. So we have to be able to recognize the difference between what's real and unreal, and then hold the reality of that constantly. And the more we keep on that constant is where we bring that to life. The insight becomes a living wisdom. Is that I can continually walk around with the connection between my feet and the floor. I'm walking around grounded all the time. I'm living the wisdom of that insight. It's be brought to life. And it's a direct perception, is I can see that clearly. So at one point is that you see the ground everywhere you look. You step into the ground everywhere you step, because you're stepping in that insight all the time, and you're living the wisdom of it, and you're in the knowing of it. And after a while, you don't have to practice it or think about it. It's just something that spontaneously happens. You're in the intuition of it. You're following your sense of it. It's not a thought. It's just your sense of that connection. And that sense is your intuition, which we'll expand on as we go along, yeah? So we got to find newness, connection, We got to hold that in a place where it can be constant in our center. We've got to be able to recognize the difference between real and unreal. But then equally, we need something else. We need something else that will power us with this, that will really power us along. And what that is potential. We need to be able to tap into our potential, and that we can take our potential and that we begin to channel our potential into that insight. And think about what potential is. Potential is the possibility. And it's the potential of something. You got to bear with me on this. It's potential, but it's not, hasn't become something yet. That's what potential is. It's the possibility, and potential, full potential, is the full possibility, is the infinite possibility of things, but yet nothing has become anything yet. It's still in a state of potential. We have that state of potential within us where we hold the potential of anything. The possibility of anything is within us. It's part of our nature. And it's a state in itself. It's a state of potential where we haven't turned it into anything. It's just that state of potential. And it's very powerful. Imagine going into any situation of your life, feeling a state of potential in it. It would give you a real powerful ability to step into any situation, knowing that potential can come out in 100 different ways, depending on what's required in the situation. It allows you to be very, very adaptable because you hold that state of potential. Where if you didn't hold that state of potential, is you might then be holding a state of limitation. We apply limitations to us. Is I'll only be grounded when it's a sunny day. Well, that's going to restrict us. I'll only be grounded when the grass is wet. Okay, it's a limitation. I'm being silly, but they're limitations. If I say I'm going to be grounded and I'm going to bring my full potential to it, it allows me to be so adaptable in my ability to be grounded that I can be grounded all the time because I'm bringing that state of potential with me and I'm accessing that power within myself. So I hope you get that. I'll tease it out more. Insight, very simply, it's seeing a connection, seeing how two things come together that you haven't seen before. Pow! And it opens up a space. In the connection, there's a consciousness in it. You put those two pieces together and creates its own energy. Okay, so a bit like a jigsaw. Is two pieces separately is two parts of the story that they might not make sense. But when you put the two pieces together, you go, oh, I can make sense of that more. You put 3 or 4 pieces together, oh, now I'm starting to get a clearer picture of it. So that the inside, the more pieces you put together, the more powerful the inside is, the greater the wisdom, the more you can step into it. So now think about what we're doing today is tapping into that state of potential within ourselves so that when we're in a state of insight, when we're open to newness, we're also open to all the potentials of it. So now imagine looking at yourself, and we talked before about, we have our hurt story and we have our truth story. And our hurt story is that experience of separation. So when we experience hurt, it's like breaking a bone, breaking skin, emotionally, I don't love you, intellectually, somebody you respect calls you stupid. Just as a simple way to explain is pain is the experience of separation. And then if we can't heal that pain, if we can't return back to wholeness in it, is we're living in that experience of separation. And then we can be in fight or flight. We're struggling with it. And then we can get into a state of suffering because I can get a bang on the head and it can hurt. Or I can go around worrying for years on end about the next bang on the head I'm going to get. And the bang on the head may never come, but my worry is causing me so much suffering. It's the duress in that alone is creates its own hurt, and I suffer in that. And it's that experience of separation. And then if we identify with the hurt and the suffering, then we start telling ourselves the suffering and the hurt story. If we can release the suffering, let go of the fear, And we then begin to feel the pain. And a simple way to describe that is, if I'm trying to figure something out and I'm struggling with it, the core question I need to ask myself is, what am I afraid of? Because my struggle is my fear. So what am I afraid of? And if I keep asking that question, and as my fear tells me a little bit of the fear story, every new little bit of that story is an insight. And I'm now building up the story of what I'm afraid of. So I'm beginning to understand my fear story. And the more I understand it, I can be less fearful, I can be more understanding. So I struggle with less because I'm beginning to understand. It's not an unknown anymore. I'm not frightened of the boogeyman and the fear. I'm beginning to understand that, well, there's a boundary, and that over that boundary, I'm afraid. So in this boundary, I feel secure. Outside of that boundary is, I feel it's the unknown, and I'm afraid about it. And the clearer I get on that, the less afraid I become, the more clear I become. So at one point, I'll ask myself what I'm afraid of. And rather than getting a fear answer, I'll get a hurt answer. And what I'm doing is I'm going through all the symptoms, getting to the cause. So all my struggling responses, they're symptoms. But as I go through the fear and figure out what I'm afraid of, at one point I'll ask myself, what am I afraid of? And I won't get a fear, I'll get a hurt. Is I went over that boundary before and it hurt, and I don't want to do it again because it still hurts me. And it could be the simple thing of losing patience, acting too fast, and paying a price. And we all do things where we do something and it creates a hurt. If it's strong enough and we don't fix it or understand it in ourselves, is we'll continue to be hurt by that. So now I give myself a hurt answer. So now I stop asking myself what I'm afraid of. And now as I get into the hurt of it, I'm going to ask myself, what do I need to learn in this hurt? What do I need to learn in this so that it doesn't hurt anymore? I can let go of the hurt and step into the learning. And last week I gave the example of patience and impatience. And again, that challenge of patience and impatience, it might seem like a simple one, but I remember a time in my life where I was a young kid and I was hyper. I used to run everywhere. I was full of beans, all over the place, and it was really difficult for me to learn patience. In fact, you'll see me being impatient quite often because I want to get things done. So I still engage with that, but I've learned how to be in that way with causing less and less harm. But years ago is I would rush into things because I was just in such a rush. I was so impatient. I hadn't learned patience. And through rushing in and making mistakes and getting hurt in them, I had to figure out that my issue here is not that I'm going into this commitment, is that I'm going into it impatiently. I'm not being patient. I'm not allowing it to find a ground in it and come to life. I'm rushing in. So the importance of me learning patience in my life was elementally important. But to learn patience is I had to go through all the frustrations and the hurt that my impatience caused me. And I had to let go of the struggle in it, let go of the hurts in it, and basically get to the point where I'm going, my impatience is causing me problems here. What's my solution? Well, I have to be patient. Okay, now that might sound simple, but you can imagine the quality of patience. Who is Roy? Who's the Roy that's patient? Who's that person? So I have to find the Roy that was patient. So that was the challenge. It wasn't just, I'll just be patient. I have to be able to identify with that quality, that I am that patience. And a lot of times I am. The vast majority of times I am. Well, some people might say different, but I'm a lot more patient than I would have been before. So, and I have that identity with patience, that I know myself as patience. And that's me being able to let go of the fears, because I'm less likely to be impatient and cause harm. That's less likely to hurt me. So I don't need to be so defensive or protective about that, because I've learned what I needed to learn. I learned how to be patient, and that gave me a better balance in it. if that makes sense. And I can come into that, but I had to come into that state of patience and own it, really, really become that thing, that I wasn't just paying lip service to it, that I really took it on, not just as an insight. I go, oh, that's what it is. Let me now put that away in my cupboard. No, I had to go, patience. Okay, now I had to figure out what patience was. How does it work? And then I had to keep stepping into that insight. I had to keep engaging with patience until I understood that quality in myself, and that I'm able to live the wisdom, not just the knowledge of patience, but I've demonstrated enough in myself that I become one with that state. Like meditation, I absorb into that state of patience until I am in the knowing of the patience. Now I hold that state of knowing within me, and I'm moving in that intuitively. I'm not having to think to be patient anymore. I'm just intuitively being patient. It's just a state that I hold in my center, and I engage with it in a constant. Except for sometimes when I get impatient. But sometimes impatience is also correct, as I said last week. But you get the idea of it, yeah. So now, partly what allowed me to do that is that I knew I had the potential for patience, but I had to actualize it. I had to bring it to life. And then I had to hold it as a state of reality for me. I had to hold it as a constant, and I had to become that thing, so that I didn't just pay lip service to it. I had to actualize it within myself, and I had to do it with awareness. I had to hold it constantly in the moment until I immerse myself in it, and I let myself be boundless in it. And it becomes part of my higher function, where I can hold that state and I can be in the being of it at the same time. And that's very much the 4 states of consciousness, which I'm going to describe now. And I've just told you the story of it, those different states. So what are the 4 states of consciousness? By the way, I'll take you through a practice at the end, and I'm going to, you will see in the practice, I'll simplify this. So this big story, I'll simplify it in the practice at the end, but you'll understand the why we're doing it, what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, and the real value of it, the more you get into it. I also said I would spend more time going through the heart chakra and all the way up through the throat and the third eye and the crown, and explain them more. I think I'll leave that for the next course, the intermediate course. And then I also said I would do the 5 elements this week, or I'm doing the 4 states of consciousness instead. So I'll do the 5 elements next week. Okay, so let's start. So we talked about insight. Actually, let me tell you about the 4 states of consciousness first, and then I'll work it backwards. You have the unconscious mind. You have the subconscious mind, the conscious mind, and the superconscious mind. Okay? The unconscious mind is everything in potential, but nothing has become a thing yet, but everything is in potential. And that unconscious mind permeates everything. It's the source. It's the source of everything. If you wanted to put personify it, you could personify it as a god. And then if you wanted to put rituals and dogma around it, you could then call it a religion. And then within that, really, it's the potential of everything, the unconscious mind. It's the potential of everything. It's the source of everything. Everything comes from that potential. And when it becomes something, then it actualizes. But before it actualizes, it's there in potential. Like all wisdom, there's universal wisdom. Everything is there in potential, like frequencies. If you attune to the frequency, you attune to the wisdom. So I'll ask you a question. Who's the first person to find out how to bake? How did they find out? Nobody ever told them. they were the first person, so nobody could say this, and there it is. They have to trial and error, and they're fine tuning it, and then when they bake the perfect loaf or whatever it is that they found the frequency of how to do that, and they're attuning themselves to the wisdom of that. Now, before that person attuned to the ability to bake, was that potential already there? Yes, it was. Okay, and that's the unconscious mind. I love saying this one as well. It's a funny one. Is everybody agrees that a rock is in the present moment. Everybody agrees. Now, obviously, the rock is not aware it's in the moment, but it's at an unconscious level. It is, because it's present, by the very nature of it, there's consciousness in it, and it's at an unconscious level, and then it becomes when it becomes something. The rock it's at a subconscious level. And again, it's very, very, very low. There was no sentience in it at all, so to speak. However, does the rock have the potential to become a human being? I love asking this, because pretty much most people say no until they think about it. And the truth is, yes. But will the rock become a human being as it is? No. But do all the elements within the rock, is it within us? Yes, there's earth, there's metals, there's moisture, there's heat, there's its whole space. So all the elements that are within us are also the elements that are within the rock. So yes, all those elements that make up the rock have the potential to become sentient, to become a human being. Okay, so that's simply the truth of it, and that's because there's that potential. Okay, so now there's the potential. Actually, I love doing this one too. I'll actually listen to. Think about your inception. Okay, is the moment when the spark of life came together, and your moment of inception. But before that, were you there in potential? Yes, you were there in potential. But then in that moment of inception, pow! You have arrived. You have now actualized. You now have become something. Okay? And you're a little fetus, and you're going to grow in potential. But you're actualizing in that potential. Okay, that's the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is when something actualizes, and then you have the potential in that. Now, the subconscious mind treats everything as real. The subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between real and unreal. It treats everything as real. Okay? So now the challenge in that is very powerful, but then also is that you could treat things that are not real as real, and that's where suffering happens. And I'll explain that in a little bit, yeah? Why is it important for the subconscious mind to treat everything as real? When something is actualized, it has that potential of treating everything as real. Well, think about it if it didn't. There's everything in potential, but then when something actualizes, if it doesn't have the power to treat everything as real, it doesn't have the power to become something. So it'll fall back into potential. It'll fall back. It's a bit like sounds coming out of the silence. The silence is part of the potential. Then all the sounds that come out of that are coming from the silence, and they're actualizing. If we didn't have the ability to treat those sounds as real, those sounds would just fall back into silence and not come out again. It'd be just back into potential. So when something actualizes, it has to come with the power of treating itself as real. Okay, now that's really important because it's actualizing. However, the difficulty with ourselves is that we come in with it at a subconscious level. So we've got the baby's conscious, the baby's at a subconscious level, so it treats everything as real. It doesn't know any different. But when we gain an intellect gives us choices. intellect allows us to make more choices. Now, as we make more choices, is we can be making choices based on something we think is real, but is not real. And I'll give you an example. And I always love using this one because everybody at some point has done this. Have you ever been in a relationship where you thought somebody loved you that they didn't? You think about those teenage years and getting into the whole dating scene, and you're trying to all figure it all out, where you think somebody loves you when they didn't. And again, that's part of us being a little bit unreal in that situation. Or you're learning something and you think you're great at it, and you think you're much further down the road than you think you are. And the only way you find that out, playing the piano, the only way you find that out is when you put yourself around your peers and you realize the level of your ability is less than the people around you. Now, you can be still delighted that you've got this far, but you're not as far as you think you are, if that makes sense. I'm trying to give silly examples, but ones where you can go recognizing the difference between real and unreal. And that's where hurt can happen. Again, is walking across a road thinking you're safe and ignoring the cars coming down the road. That's when it's not funny, because that's when serious harm and hurt can happen. So that's part of our challenge. The subconscious mind, it treats everything as real. So when we start to treat things as real that are not real, and then base our lives on that, is all it's going to do is perpetuate hurt and suffering. Okay, so now how do we, and it's a bit like a waking sleep. It's a bit like a waking sleep. And how do we get out of that struggle? Every person in life goes through this. So how do we get to the next level? How do we get to a place of consciousness? Okay, and I'll describe it this way, very simply. Is when we physically center ourselves, energetically, mentally center ourselves, emotionally and within our thoughts, and just within our lives. The more we center ourselves in the rooms, the people in our lives, the situation in our lives, what we're doing is that while we're centering ourselves in ourselves, we're also centering ourselves in the present moment. We're also centering ourselves in our awareness. So the more we center ourselves in the present moment, is part of the source experience. So everything is in potential. Where is that potential? It's in the present moment. My body is living in the present moment. When I connect to my body and come into the beautiful center of gravity within it, I'm now spontaneously in my body with awareness. I'm now in the living moment of my body. And I'm breathing the life force. I'm breathing the life force to that body, and I'm in the consciousness in that body. And I'm awakening myself. So when I come into the moment and I awaken to the moment, I now know that I know I'm in the moment. Is what's happened is that I've awakened consciousness within me. Is that I have awoken to the moment. So everybody has that awakening experience in the one place, which is the present moment. I now know that I know. Rather than in the subconscious mind, we can treat things as real, and some things we do treat as real that are real, and other things we treat as real that are not real. So we can, like the baby, we can flicker from pleasure and pain, depending on whether it's working for us, or depending on whether we're causing ourselves more hurt and suffering. So you'll see that we can be pushed and pulled by our interpretations of life's experiences or ourselves. And it can get very confusing, because in our subconscious mind, we treat it as real. So in that, we're so committed to it, but yet it's hurting us. So it can be a very difficult place to be if we're in a subconscious mind that seems like it's an uncomfortable or hurtful place to be. Does that make sense? And then we get pushed and pulled by the tides of that. So normally what happens is that there's two ways that people get motivated to stop being pulled around like that. Is either they have the calling, they got the really strong calling on themselves, that consciousness within them is calling them to wake up. Some people have that. And other times it's through the suffering and the hurt. is when we suffer and are hurting too much, it motivates us to look for something. And I talked about this last week. We go looking, the searcher goes searching. And the searcher, the intellect, is looking to awaken the instinct. So the instinct, the intellect and the instinct align themselves, intuition is awoken. We intuitively wake up. We now know that we know. So when the child is hungry, it's just hungry. It doesn't know it's hungry, it just is. But then when we know that we know, we now we know with consciousness. We now know that we know. That happens in the present moment. And that's the awakening of consciousness within us. And it's in the present moment. Okay? So now, why is this important? Is the one power of consciousness is that it's conscious and that it's in the present moment. So, how can I say this? I'll say it this way. Is if you centered yourself physically, energetically, mentally, okay, and as you come into that knowing within yourself, is you're coming into the awareness within yourself, you're coming into your sense of presence within your awareness, and that's your consciousness. It's your presence of being, and that presence of being is ever present, and you've awoken to that. You're now aware of that state. That's your intuitive self. I could say a lot more about that, but I'm not right now. But its one power is consciousness itself. Now, what would happen if you allowed yourself to just be continuously in the present moment? You're in your center of gravity in your body. And that center of gravity allows your body to be continuously, spontaneously in the moment. And then you're following the spontaneous breath. And then you're following your thoughts with spontaneous awareness. And then you're doing it from a place of knowing. And you're in that natural, innate sense of yourself, that attuned sense of yourself, and you're in the moment. Okay, and then you've got the power of consciousness. So within that, who will appear? Because a lot of the times our subconscious mind it can be like fiefdoms, is that the different states of mind that we have is they can build up a lot of power. And what happens is that when you're in, let's say you're in a happy mood, that happy state has a lot of power, has a lot of control. And one of the things it wants to control is your consciousness. Because once your subconscious mind takes control of your consciousness and convinces it that it's real, your happiness and the consciousness within it feels very powerful. Because your subconscious mind treats everything as real. So when you're happy, your consciousness is fully in it. You're in the happiness of it, and it feels real. Does that make sense? And it's great. But then there's also a side that sometimes is pissed off, moody, angry, whatever it is, sad. Okay, just as an example. So that state of mind in you, at a subconscious level, it treats itself real too. So now when it wants to come up, when it wants to be in power, it has to now take control of your consciousness. So when you're sad or when you're in bad form, at a subconscious level and you're in it, your consciousness is now treating as real. And we can be pulled from pillar to post, that depending on the state of mind we're in, we're treating that as real. Okay, now we're in another state of mind. Now we're treating that as real. So you're in situations in your life, and you've got relationships, you've got your work, you've got your career, you've got your hobbies, you got whatever, your family, whatever it is you've got to engage with your life. You've got to engage with the rooms, the people, and the situations in your life. And when you're happy, your perception of that is coming from a happy place and is being treated like as it's real, and it's great. Hey, it's wonderful. But now when you're sad or angry or whatever it is, and now you're treating that as real, now you're looking at your family, your work, and all these things, and now you're looking at them, but you're treating your sadness as real. And it really does pull on the quality of the experience within ourselves and our lives, because every time the subconscious mind goes into a particular state, that's real. Oh, now this is real. Now that's real. Oh, now this is real. And after a while, people get a bit exhausted. You're just like, which one is real? Where am I in this? Something's missing. I just back to the searcher. Something's missing. This is too much. I gotta find something. I gotta find something that I don't know what it is, but I gotta find that thing. And that's the intellect begins looking for the instinct. I gotta find that rightness within myself again. So now you go to do yoga, you center physically, energetic, mentally. You come more and more into the moment. You're going, I'm really getting this centering thing. And when I'm coming from a place of center, the world looks very different. I'm able to actually see what's actually happening. So rather than me looking at it through my happy lens or my sad lens or whatever lens it is, I'm just looking at things as they are. I'm able to see what's happening right now in the moment. This is actually refreshing. This is actually really nice. I'm not struggling in this. This just lets me see what's going on. God, if I made decisions from here, they'd be pretty clear decisions because I'm not getting pushed and pulled. It allows me to use my natural intelligence to see what I see and then make decisions based on what's happening, not what I think is happening, because I'm all sad and I'm treating that as real. Oh, now tomorrow I'm all happy. Well, now I'm changing my mind about my perception because I'm from a happy place. No. I'm in the present moment. I'm watching what's happening. I can see what's going on. When I make that decision, I can follow through on that decision as long as I stay grounded, as long as I stay present, as long as I keep seeing things as they are. It allows me to make decisions and follow through on them. And the more comfortable I get with that, it doesn't matter whether I'm in the happiness or sadness, is I'm allowing myself to see what's actually happening, and I can see it as a more direct perception. However, there is a challenge. Is your happiness still wants your attention? Your sadness still wants your attention, and whatever other state of mind that you're in will want your attention. And a nice way to describe it, and this is not facetious. This is true. This is true of every child, and it is equally true of every adult. Doesn't matter what your age is. So, but I'll ask from a child's point of view, what are the two things a child basically wants? It wants your attention and it wants your love. And essentially it wants your attention, it wants to be recognized, and then your love is really, it wants to be felt. Everybody wants to be recognized and everybody wants to be felt. That's the truth of it. All of us want that. Doesn't matter what age we are, that's what we want. And then that's what we want in our relationships. That's what we want in our work. That's what we want in our creativity, in all the things that are your core values, all the things that are most important to you. Within those, you want to be recognized and you want to be felt. And the more you're recognized and you're felt, the more content we are in our lives. It gives us that sense of purpose and meaning because we feel connected to it and we feel recognized in it. And it's that symbiotic engagement of awareness and energy, and it's the exchange of that connection. We all want that. So your subconscious mind wants that. All your states of mind want that. That's the currency. Does that make sense? That's the currency. That's the consciousness. Your awakened state. That's your power. I hold the awareness, and then I can hold the space open for that awareness to feel things. So now who's got the power? Consciousness has the power. Yourself that's conscious in the moment, that's a real power. So now, rather than your subconscious mind playing out the reality of what they think is real compared to what is real, and all that push and pull, your subconscious mind must come to your conscious mind. So your subconscious mind, all your moods, all your sides of yourself will gradually appear in the present moment. It's like they'll knock on the door. Hello, are you there? They have to come into the present moment. So they have to come in. They've no choice because you're not going to give them your consciousness. That's the one thing you don't do, is you don't give over your consciousness. And I'll tell you why. Is what's more powerful? Your consciousness in the moment, or some state of mind that wants to convince you that it is more important than your consciousness of the moment? That if I can make you feel this and convince you that this feeling is more important than being in the present moment, is then you're giving your power away. Why would you do that? Why would you give your power away and give it away to the focus of the moment? That's disempowering to you. And then within yourself, all those different states, you're just feeding into the suffering and the hurt. So no, I'm not going to give it away. But what I will do is I will share it. But what's the deal? You must come into the present moment. You must appear, and then in that, I will willingly give you my attention. And then I'm going to give you all the space you need to express yourself, because I want to understand you. I want to feel you. Because the two basic things you want is you want to be understood, you want to be recognized, and then you want to be felt. And that the most real place that can happen is in the present moment, because that's reality. So the more I see you in the present moment, and the more I feel you in the present moment, is now your subconscious mind is now beginning to attune itself to reality. Rather than just treating everything as real, your conscious mind can help your subconscious mind tell the difference between what's real and what's not real. So at a conscious level, you can begin to let go of what's not real and then allow what is real to stay in the present moment. I'll give you an example. How do you find permanent joy? How do you find permanent joy? Is you'll only find permanent joy when you begin to treat opposites equally. So you have your happiness and you have your sadness, just as an example, yeah? Is happiness and sadness, opposites are two sides of the one coin. They're literally two sides of the one coin. And that when you understand both and you understand the relationship between both, you realize there's a very thin line between pleasure and pain. There's a very thin line between happiness and sadness. And that when you allow yourself to be authentically in both, then you're in the authenticity of your humanity, because we all experience this. And there's times when we're authentically happy, and there's times when we're authentically sad. When we're not fighting either one, we can just be in it, and we're in the truth of it. We're in the being of it, and it is the truth of it. And when you do that, you'll be more inclined to be in the joy rather than the happiness and the sadness. What do I mean by that? Is if you treat your happiness and your sadness equally, I'll ask it this way. You have a son and a daughter, okay? Two kids, son and a daughter, sort of opposite sex, just keep it simple. Son and daughter. Which one do you prefer more? Which one do you like most? That's a terrible choice to make. That's a terrible choice to make. Is, in fact, don't do it. Don't do it. That's not a choice to be made. Is you treat both equally. Does that make sense? Is you love both equally. However, both have their own character. Both have their own nature. So when you give them both your attention, you hold the space open, you feel both of them, you see both of them, is you also have to allow for the nature of both of them. And one of them on a given day might be happy, and another one on a given day might be sad, or vice versa. But just because one is happy on a day and the other is sad on a day, do you hold the space differently for them? No. If in fact you facilitate the space for both of them, so that they can begin to figure out how it is to be happy and stay connected to it. That's not wrong. That you don't have to suffer in that, is that you can just be in the joy of it. And sometimes happiness is painful. And if you don't think about it, is what's the level of, I'll ask it this way. Does everybody know their pain tolerance? How much pain can you tolerate? Everybody seems to recognize their pain tolerance. Everybody, I ask on teacher training all the time, who knows their pain tolerance? All the hands go up. Okay, who knows their pleasure tolerance? And less than half the hands go up. But there is a pleasure tolerance. There is a limit to how much pleasure we can experience, and then it becomes uncomfortable. It can even become painful. And there's a very thin line between pleasure and pain, because both at a certain point can hurt and become uncomfortable. We can suffer in both. So when I say that finding that authenticity in the happiness, if you're in a happy mood, is sometimes that happiness is sometimes we could be really forcing it. We're trying to force ourselves to be happy. It's not. Now you're in a state of struggling in it. It's not as happy as it could be. Where if you're at peace with it, is we can really bloom in the joy of it. Now the sadness is, again, sometimes we're authentically sad. If we're constantly trying to suppress the sadness, is now we're in a state of suffering with it. But if there's times when we're authentically sad, is it allows us to be in the authenticity of it. And sadness is a very comforting sensation, feeling. It's a state. It's really comforting. Sadness is like hugging ourselves. It's allowing ourselves to feel that. And there can be a real joy in that. So when we're allowing ourselves to live the full spectrum of both without treating either one good or bad, or treating them equally, is we can allow ourselves to experience the joy of both. And that's where we find permanent joy, is in treating everything as one. And sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're sad, but all the time I'm in the joy of life. I'm experiencing the joy of my human experience. Does that make sense? And that's how we find permanent joy. There's a higher state of consciousness within ourselves. Yeah. So anyway, you get what I'm trying to say. But the subconscious mind has to come to the present moment. So now it's holding that awareness open for the subconscious mind, for the moods to come in. To give you a simple, for the whatever mood you're in, whatever state of mind you're in, to come in and be recognized. Now, we're not making it wrong. We're not trying to change it. We're not trying to distort it. We're not putting expectations on it. We're just allowing ourselves to be in that state. But the one thing we're not going to do with it is resist it, is to fight it. Because that fight or flight, that resistance is only creating more friction. So when we take the fight out of it, it allows us to see more clearly what's actually happening for us, what we're feeling, what we're thinking, what we're doing. It lets us see what's actually happening for us in the moment, whether it's a pleasure or the pain, the happiness or the sadness. Is just that space where you can come to in yourself and just be heard within yourself. You're just listening to yourself. You're just feeling yourself. And there's no trying to change it. There's no fighting it. There's no resisting it. It just sounds like a sanctuary, which is what we were talking about last week, is just coming to that place of sanctuary within ourselves. But that sanctuary is in the moment. It's not outside the moment. And the more our subconscious mind comes in, and we see it, we want to understand it and feel it, is then the subconscious mind, then those moods, those states of mind begin to communicate rather than react. Because if they're in fight or flight, they're reacting all the time. If there's no struggle, and then they're not reacting, now they're responding. Imagine all the moods and states of mind you have in yourself begin to respond to you, begin to engage in a conversation with you. So you're having a conversation with yourself, but it's actually an engaged conversation. It's a real form of communication. You're listening, you're watching, you're feeling, you're truly communicating. You start throwing out some questions that you've never asked before. You start getting responses back that you've never heard before. Every one of those responses are something that you notice that you hadn't noticed before. That's insight, something new. Now you're beginning to really hear the story, not just the hurt story and the reaction to it. Is we put the reaction down so we can hear the real story. And every time that state of mind, every time your mood comes in, good, bad, or indifferent, comes in, and shares a little bit more with you, it shares a little bit of its story, you understand it more, you feel yourself more, and you unburden yourself from the hurt a little bit. And you open yourself a bit more to your truth. And really what you're doing is you're freeing yourself from the suffering and hurt. And you might find yourself coming back to just a natural state of happiness, a natural state of sadness. You see the journey that both go on together, and you realize they're intrinsically linked. Why would I treat these any different? I'm going to give them the same attention and the same space. I want to understand both equally. And then you start to find a constant in it. You can be constantly engaged with it and not have to leave, and they don't have to leave. So those aspects of yourself that are those states of mind, those qualities, can come into the present moment. At some point, they will go, you know, this seems like a nice place to be. You know, when I'm here, I feel most alive. I feel most present. I feel most engaged. You know, I think I'll stay here. I think I'll stay here. This is a good place to be. This is actually where I reside. This is actually where I'm meant to be. And what we're doing is we're incrementally increasing our energy levels, increasing our consciousness, and more of ourselves is actualizing in the moment. We're beginning to get a true sense of our sense of self in the moment. Does that make sense? And this, the consciousness is not just awakening, it's a series of awakenings within ourselves. And we're raising our consciousness and really raising our vibration. Okay, and that's us tapping into the power of the subconscious mind. What would happen if you took the power of the subconscious mind, which is the ability to treat everything as real, actualization. It can treat anything as real and it can actualize it, even your suffering, if you want. So you can actualize. Now imagine taking the power of consciousness and within that, your ability to actualize, treat things as real, so that you have your subconscious mind now focused on reality, not the unreal, but the real. Your subconscious mind, the power of your subconscious mind comes in and says, I'm going to now place myself in the present moment. I'm going to focus on reality itself. I'm going to focus on the moment. And I'm going to breathe life into that moment. And I'm going to treat the present moment itself as real. And the fact is, the present moment is reality. But your subconscious mind is now focused on that. How much deeper would your experience of the present moment become? That you could actualize your understanding of the present moment. You can actualize your consciousness of the moment, and you know you're doing it. So your ability to stay constantly present becomes much easier because you're really tapping into the real power within yourself and you're activating it, you're actualizing it. It's very powerful. So we've got to do a little bit of a clear out of our subconscious mind to figure out the difference between what's real and what's not real. And slowly letting go of the not real is letting go of the suffering and the hurt. And it allows us to focus on the present moment and what's happening now and engaging in that. And the more our choices and decisions become more refined, it allows us to use our fear, which is part of ourselves that recognizes our boundaries, where we go, listen, this is where I'm safe. Over that, that's not safe anymore. That's what fear is telling us. It lets us know the boundaries. It's our sense of ourselves and our preservation of ourselves. And if we use that in a conscious way, it's part of the natural decision making of our intuition, is knowing the rightness of things and knowing the wrongness of things. And that we're not afraid to look at that, that we're looking at that and we're not afraid of it. Okay, so now the subconscious mind, we're going to go down into the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind is, you got to think about this, and I said this earlier on, it's a state of potential. But nothing has happened yet. There hasn't become anything. It's just a state of potential. And it's very powerful. Is anytime you hear people talking about, tapping into your true potential, what they're talking about is tapping into your your unconscious mind, tapping into the source and the power of the present moment, and taking that potential. And it's not using it, it's holding that state of potential itself. Imagine just being in a state of potential, not doing anything with it, just being in a state of potential. You understand how big and strong an experience of that is. Okay, so where do we naturally find this? Where does everybody experience this normally? Okay, so you're awake, you're going about your day. And again, if you're awakened, you're going about your day focused on the present moment and engaging in an awakened way on what's happening right now, and basing your decisions on what's happening right now, measuring your actions and allowing yourself to adapt your actions and your decisions to keep yourself navigating through the present moment and bringing to life, actualizing what it is you want to actualize right now, and bring it to reality right now. Not living the dream of it in your head, but actualizing the dream of it in reality. And by the way, we all have a dream. Everybody has a dream. We'll talk about that again, but everybody has a dream. And that when we attune to that naturalness within ourselves, our dream unfolds to us, and we begin to move into that state. We begin to move into those frequencies that will actualize that. Another conversation for another day. Getting off the track a little bit. So, yeah. So you're walking around. So if you're doing it with awareness, you're in that awakened state. If you're going about your day, not really attuning to the present moment, just in your own world of thoughts and emotions, and treating everything by how you feel. You know, so if you go into work and you're in a good mood, so you'll treat everybody in a good mood. If you're in a bad mood, you'll treat everyone in a bad mood. Then you're just treating them, you're half asleep in yourself. And I don't mean that rudely, but you are. Because you're not engaging with the moment itself, you're engaging with how you feel in the moment, and you're treating how you feel as more real than the moment itself. And that's the truth of it. And we all do that at times, and we all have to go through that experience to get to the point where we can actually just go, hang on, I'm now present. So there's not one of us outside of that. But it is the truth. So when we go to sleep at night, we're allowing our consciousness to settle. And what happens is the body goes to an immobile state, and it starts to unwind. The breathing calms down, the mind calms down, and the mind begins to let go of the I. And as the mind begins to let go of the I, the I begins to merge into the subconscious mind. It begins to go into a dream state where I is not in control anymore. So when we start to go into what we call sleep, we're really just letting go of the I within us, and we're moving into the being within ourselves. But first, we must pass through the subconscious, and the subconscious takes control of the consciousness, and then we process our day and we process our life by our subconscious mind dreaming what it needs to dream to let go of what we need to let go of. Does that make sense? To figure things out, to take our day's experience and bring it from the short-term memory and bring it down into the long-term memory, which is more abstract. Okay, so we're dreaming. And then as we go through the dream state, at one point we go all the way down, that we go past the subconscious mind and we stop dreaming. And then our consciousness comes to a place where it becomes very still. And then the consciousness just drops into a state of being. So it disengages from the senses, and that allows us, the consciousness just allows itself to be in a state of being itself. And in that, it frees itself from all attachments, and we just go back into that absolute unconscious potential. And we're in that state of the unconscious. And that's our deepest sleep. And we normally spend an hour or two in there a night. And that's when we get a good night's sleep, is that when we've got that. Is if we don't go to that place, that unconscious, that level of unconscious, we don't feel like we've got a good enough sleep. We might sleep 8 hours, but that release that's where we really recharge when we go there, because it's so energizing. Now, it is possible to awaken the unconscious mind, to become fully aware in the unconscious mind. And I remember going through this process as I think I was about maybe 6 or 7. All the years get a bit vague, but 6 or 7. I said in another video before, I was deconstructing. I might have been on the first one of Discourse. I remember as somebody died in my family, and it left me a load of questions. And what it brought me to is I needed to know. Nobody could give me that sense of knowing. So before I could know anything, I needed to know what it was to know. I had to activate the knower. So I remember at one point is about 6, looking at a wall, and rather than ask myself what I was, I asked myself what I wasn't. And as I was looking at that wall, I knew in my heart and soul that I'm not that wall. And it just consciousness just exploded into me, because I knew in my heart and soul, I knew what it was to know now. And then in that, what I started to do was take out all the things that I'm not. So deconstructing is you take out everything that you can. So as I took out everything that I could, you're just left with the things that you can't take out. So one of the things I couldn't take out was consciousness. I did my best. But it wouldn't go. So about 6 or 7 is still on the same journey of figuring out the knowing, and knowing what really happened. So I remember asking my family, how did my family member die, and they said he crashed on the bike. And I said, okay, but how did he die though, And then they said, well, he banged his head, and I said, okay, yeah, well, I was only a kid, I was like, but yeah, but how did he die, And then they said, well, his heart stopped. I said, okay, I'm too young still to get it. I'm still not getting it, I said, yes. So then what happened? I was like, what happened there? What happened then? How did that make him die? And then I remember so clearly. I was told, well, then he stopped breathing. And then I was like, he stopped breathing, because I could understand he stopped breathing. I could get that one. So I understood. Okay, he stopped breathing. Okay, now I understand. Okay, and that's how his body died. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, I'm figuring all this out. So my family member died when I was 4, so I'm at this for years, teasing still. So, but I was deconstructing by the time I was 5 or 6. So by the time I was hitting 7 or 8, I really got into that state of just being in a state of consciousness itself, and it's very powerful. So I remember lying there at night, figuring all this stuff out, and I'm trying to figure out how to die. How do you die? How do you actually? I really wasn't. My concept of death wasn't like an adult, I was asking, how do you leave here? Is how can you be here and then go somewhere else? Because I was asking myself, if he was here and then he's gone there, if I'm here, well, then where was I before I was here? And that's what triggered off the question. Well, if I was somewhere else, well, then what can I take off here? So I started that question of what am I not? So then I remembered the thing about the breathing. So I said, well, why don't I try to stop breathing, and see what happens, And this is all in innocence. I'll try this. I'll give this a go. So I was holding my breath, and didn't get very far, not very far at all. So I said, okay, let's try and slow my breathing down. So and now I've been doing this for hours. I built up doing this hours and hours and hours, night after night after night, and I got really good at it. So it was really easy at the start to slow your inhale down. So then when you reach a certain peak of the inhale, when there's not too much pressure in you can really surf the peak of your inhale for a very long time. So I did that for a long time. I'd inhale really, really slowly, and then I'd surf that peak for ages. And then anytime I tried to do the exhaling, I couldn't do the same. The exhale was really uncomfortable. I didn't like the restriction of it. The exhale was always shorter. And I got really frustrated by that. And I realized after a while, I gotta figure out the exhale, And the inhale is all about life, but the exhale is all about the death, And if you think about it, the last the last breath, think about your last breath as an exhale. And you can imagine the last exhale is probably the longest exhale you're ever going to do. So, well, unless you do yoga and really work on it, you know. So what I started to do was do this. I take a big breath in and go, and then after a while I started to notice it. I figured out that I was doing it to the beat of my heart. It took me a while now, but I was like, what's this? What's this rhythm? What am I feeling? Oh, that must be my heart. So then I started doing it to my heartbeat. So now I'm exhaling it to my heartbeat, and I'm to the beat of my heart. And I learned how to really slow my heartbeat down. So when I could slow my heartbeat down, my body would get very, very relaxed, and I could do that for a really long time. I do it for minutes, just kept going on and on and on. But what happened is my body started to fall asleep, and I noticed my body falling asleep, but yet I was still awake, you know. And then I was really enjoying the whole experience of that heaviness of my body and just letting it sleep. I was like, this must be part of what death feels like, feeling the letting go and the heaviness and all that, you know. And I was exploring it. And then it came into a beautiful connection. Then I started feeling this spaciousness and this lightness. You know, I said this spaciousness and lightness. It started to dissipate my awareness. So I went through the whole phase of my awareness, the eye going into the like a gazing. Is my eye would just merge into like a feeling of eye everywhere. And it's just, it permeated. And then it would permeate into my body and it would permeate into my breath. My body's falling asleep, but yet I'd retain a consciousness. I'd have a knowing of my consciousness without an eye. And I didn't realize till years later what I was doing is that I was going down into the subconscious. And then after a while, I realized that this is actually a really cool place to be. It was really nice, you know. And then my whole idea was, I started to lucid dream. I noticed I was dreaming and being aware of it. So I was watching my dreams and following my dreams, knowing I was in them. And then I thought, you know, I could use this. You know, I could work with this. You know, and because part of it was my family member died and he went to heaven, so he's up in the sky. You know, I pissed off my family asking them. So one day I was just like, oh, he's up in heaven. You know, so where's he gone? You know, so I was like, well, how did he go up there? You know, so I was doing all this heaviness. I was doing all this spaciousness. I was doing all this lightness. It was absolutely gorgeous. I was in my dreams and I was fully conscious in my dreams. And I thought, well, why don't I dream about flying? You know, that'd be a good dream because I've got to figure out how to get up there. So why don't I fly? You know, so I started to nudge my consciousness towards flying. I wanted my body to fly. So then I used to go and imagine myself dreaming of flying. And then I started to fly. I was having dreams of flying. And then I truly knew what it was to fly. I remember having that one time, going, this is what a bird feels like. Just the wind in my face and the motion. It was amazing. It was beautiful. So I'm figuring all this out. And this is going on over years, like 6, 7, 8, 9. And then I thought one day, sorry, to cut a long story short, I got into my subconscious mind, not to get lost in what I'm doing here. So there's the conscious mind, there's the subconscious mind. There's a place that I would go to at times where I would just go down and down and down, and everything would strip away. And then I remember hitting a rubber wall one time. That's what it felt like. And every time I tried to pass through it, it was like I was bouncing me back, you know. And there was a bit of give in it, but it would never let me through. I think I spent 3 months every night going there and throwing myself at the wall, knowing that there's something beyond that wall and I want to get in there. What is that? And I exhausted myself. I was spent. I was completely spent. And the one time I completely exhausted myself. And then I went against the wall and I just went through it. And what I went through is when I went through it, I dropped all my senses. I let go of all my senses, and I just went into pure consciousness itself. And I went into that unconscious state, that state of absolute potential, but I went into it consciously. The only thing that could go in is consciousness itself. I had to leave all my other senses at the door, so to speak. So now there was only that sense. Sense is a sense of consciousness, is like the sixth sense. So I had to just let my sixth sense go in, the sixth sense go in, consciousness itself. And I tapped into that amazing place of potential. And then I started to just stay in that place. And it's just like floating. It's like floating in bliss, floating in bliss absolute. It's absolutely beautiful. It's amazing. So I spent a good time. I used to go down there and spend a good time with that, you know. And then at one point I thought, you know, rather than dreaming of flying, why don't I actually try and fly? Why don't I actually see if I can make my body fly? Rather than dreaming of my body flying, why don't I actually make my body fly? So rather than going into my dreams and lucid dreaming and going into the unconscious, I stayed in my body, and I tried to lift my body. And at one point I came out of my body and I started to astral project. And I thought my body came up, but then when I turned around and looked back, my body's still on the bed, and here I am going, what the hell's going on? And then I did a whole journey on astral projecting. But that's a story for another day. Conscious into the subconscious, into the unconscious, tapping into that state of absolute potential, then tapping into that state of actualization, and then tapping into that state of consciousness itself, and aligning all three. So you're taking the power of your potential, and you're going to actualize it, and you're going to bring it right into reality itself. You're going to focus on reality itself. And then as you come into the present moment, is you're awakening in your root chakra, you're awakening yourself to the present moment. I am present. When your potential is channeling through your subconscious and you're awakening more and more of yourself, is you're saying, I am in the moment. Now, when you want to go to and that's the personal truth, that's the awakening. When you want to go into the super conscious, is you're in the present moment until you realize that you're not just in the moment, but you have an experience of the eternal, is you're not just in the moment, but you are the moment itself. So when you recognize that you are the moment, that's that super conscious state, is you're tapping into the absolute of reality. And that's the process of that absolute potential. Then there's the actualization, then there's the coming into reality, and then there's the full potential of that reality. And it's the universal state. And then generally that's the process of the stages, yeah. So that all sounds like a lot. And it is, but then again, there's a simplification of it. Is I could try and figure out everything that's going on in my subconscious mind, or I can just go right to the root power of my subconscious mind, which is its ability to treat everything as real. So now what would happen if you went around in the present moment and you meant what you said? Mean what you say. Because you actually mean it. Feel what you feel and actually feel it. That you're in the present moment, and that everything that you say and do, actually mean it and actually feel it. That when you're engaging in the present moment, is you do it from a place of actualization. You're treating it as real. Now, to do that is you have to then recognize that constant within yourself and be able to hold that constant within it. So I am happy sometimes. I am sad sometimes, but I'm actually both. Now, what does that mean? Is think about, we talked before about this room is your mind, and the wall is your mind screen. You're not your thoughts, you come away from it. Okay, so now you're in the mind field, and as you become aware of that, it becomes mindful, and then you're attuning to the consciousness within it, and within that consciousness, there's that presence of being. is that you coming from your awareness into your intuitive self, that presence of being. Yeah. So I can be my eternal, ever present self, but I'm also my humanity. I am my humanity as well, and I fully embrace my humanity. I am that too, because this is the plane of existence I'm on. This is the plane of existence I'm here to experience. I'm not gonna say it's not real. I'm gonna treat it as absolute real, but I'm gonna do it from a place of full awareness and consciousness of living the awakened experience of it. What the heck does that mean? This is what it means. Is you can be in your mind screen and you can be caught up in the happiness and the projection of it. And you can be caught up in the sadness and the projection of it and the struggle in it. So you're not that, so you come away from that. But then in my humanity, there's times when I am happy and there's times when I am sad. And I'm authentically in both. And when I'm in those, I'm authentically in them. So now this is what I mean by it, is I'm in my center and I'm in my constant self, but I'm also in my humanity. So my happiness in my mind field, in my mindfulness, my happiness is with me all the time. My sadness is with me all the time. My joy is with me all the time. My abundance is with me all the time. Even my lack is with me all the time. My broken heart, my sadness and my broken heart is with me all the time. Even though I've learned the truth of it and I'm in the bonding of my heart and I'm living the fullness of that, there's a part of me that still is that. And I'm living that too. So that there's the fullness of my humanity, but there's also the freedom within that things come to the fore, but nothing has to leave. So sometimes I'm happy and my happiness is to the fore, but my happiness is one of the states I'm experiencing and it's to the fore. None of the others have to leave for me to feel happy. They're all here. I'm in the fullness of myself. None of them have to leave. Does that make sense? And I'm living my full humanity. At the same time, I'm also the constant being within that. But I am also my being and then my doing. So sometimes I am angry or I am sad. You know, I am being that and I am doing that and I am completely in it when I'm in it. But I also know that I'm doing it and I'm experiencing my humanity. But I'm also doing it from a place of constant. I can be in the being and the doing. And then the sadness goes, I'm something else. You know, but within all those engagements of my human experience and the fullness of that, I also have that constant within me that allows me to hold the scales and the balance of all those at the same time. And allow me to go through the authenticity of that ebb and flow of life that moves through me and my humanity. So that I don't have to push my sadness down into my subconscious mind. Don't need to do that. Is if my sadness comes into the present moment, is I live the authenticity of it and I live it as an actualized state. I treat it as absolute real when it's in the moment and I'm in the authenticity of it, because authentically, that's exactly how I feel in that moment. I'm not going to treat it as anything different. That's exactly how I feel, and that's what I'm going to treat as real. But do I have to let go of the present moment and the infinite of things in that? No, I don't. I'm both at the same time. And that's okay. That's life. And that's the journey of it, living the fullness of it, living the completeness of it. So the end of your life is the more you understand yourself, the more you understand the completeness of yourself, is it all holds its value. And that's the story of our lives. And then the purpose and the meaning that we find in that is, again, that's what lifts us. And at one point is we let go of all the humanity part. When you come to the end, you've got to let go of all the humanity part. You can't bring it with you. But what you can do is you just release yourself then into the pureness of being. Is you allow yourself to consciously return to the source. You willingly do it. No fight, no struggle, no hurt. It's just you in pure joy, pure love. You just let yourself go into it. But while you're here, is have that, but also live the fullness of your life's experience. That's the journey. So tapping into the potential. That's what we're going to look at. So I'm going to take you through the practice that we did last week. I won't spend as long on it. because I'm assuming that as you go through the classes, you get a little bit more established in it. And the only thing I'm going to layer in is tapping into being able to sit in that in a state of potential. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of spatial awareness, internally and externally, just to center yourself in your center and do it mindfully. And we're going to open up the mind field, and then what we're going to do is that we're going to allow the subconscious to come in, allow the thoughts to come in. So rather than the mind screen and the thoughts being on the screen, let the state itself come in. So rather than thinking about your happiness, let yourself come into the state of happiness. If it comes in, let it come in. If it's a sadness, let it come in. Whatever it is let it in. Give it your attention. You're here to know it. It wants to be recognized. Honor it and recognize it. I see you. I hear you. I feel you. Whatever it is. No rights, no wrongs, no attacking, none of that. I'm going to leave all that out at the door, so to speak. Then I want to understand you. I want to feel you. I'm going to give you the space to express yourself. But while you do that, I'm going to now hold for you a state of absolute potential. Is that I hold for you the full potential of your being, and that you can access that as you tell me your story. So you tell your story whatever way you need to, and let's see the potential of what comes out. And you're holding that state of potential. So now you're consciously in the moment, you're holding your state of potential, and you're allowing your subconscious mind to figure itself out. You're giving yourself the space to let your thoughts figure themselves out, to let your emotions figure themselves out, to let you figure your own body out. And that you're holding that, knowing that you have the full potential to figure it all out, to see it all, and that you're holding that. That's the bit we're adding on. That's all we're doing, just adding that bit on. But you'll understand why we're doing it after today's session and how powerful it is the more you settle into it. The more you settle into it. Doing it once or twice is not good enough. Is doing it regularly and tapping into it is where the real power is. It's like a breathing technique. They are so simple. You do a breathing technique every day for a year, and you'll understand the story, the encyclopedia of what that breathing technique is, because it tells you so much about yourself. There's a whole story in it. So this is the same thing. This practice, there's a whole story in it. Now, on another day, we could be doing the heart chakra, and we're going to do exactly the same thing, but we're going to do it relating it to the heart chakra and the story of the bond and the breaking of the bond and how to bring that all back together. If it's the solar plexus, we're going to listen to the story of our power and our struggles with power and our power and our disempowerment, and how do we bring ourselves back to a state of empowerment, to personal power, and understanding that story and holding the potential for all of it and doing it with attention and care. Okay, so this practice that we're doing now, we're going to do exactly the same practice in all the other chakras. It's the same practice that you would do in your body, in your posture work. Is holding the space open and just engaging with your body and understanding your body. And as your body comes more and more into its center, as it comes more and more integrated, as it comes into that oneness of being within itself, you really begin to experience the true power of your body and its potential and its adaptability. Your body's potential to be so adaptable. Okay? So you ready? Just let your eyes close. Just check the time. As always, it's bloody 7:30. Okay, but we got to do this practice. Can't leave without doing a practice. So your eyes are closed. Just let yourself get comfortable. What I want you to do is to be sitting on your sit bones, and that your legs are comfortable, and you're sitting in your own body. So you can be cross-legged, sitting on a chair. It doesn't really matter. But really, you need to feel that slightly to the front of the sit bones. And you're sitting on the sit bones, the pelvis is stable, your legs are comfortable, so that your spine is allowed to be free from the back of the pelvis. And just let your hands rest somewhere on your thighs where it's comfortable, and that your shoulders are open. And then what I want you to do is just very, very gently begin to sway around your sit bones. Just very, very gently swaying around your sit bones. And what you're doing is you're just beginning to ground your body, center it. At the same time, is gently coming into your center of gravity. Your center of gravity is always fluid. So when you allow yourself to gently sway around the four corners of your sit bones, it gives you that lovely sense of tone and release. And that's nice. It's a lovely massaging effect. It stops the body bracing and getting locked into itself. That you're just allowing yourself to just continuously sway. And then notice the pace that you're swaying at. That you're allowing your body to spontaneously tone and release. So when you sway over to your right sit bone, and then you sway away from it, you feel the release onto the right side of your body tones a bit more, and then it releases a little bit. And it's really nice sensation. And then I want you to begin to breathe at the same pace that you're swaying. And like a pendulum, you're swaying from sit bone to sit bone. You're inhaling and exhaling in and out like a pendulum. So have your sway and your breath move like a pendulum. And then you're breathing at the same pace of your sway. Then notice the tone in your body, the general tone in your body. And your lungs are a pair of muscles. And what I want you to do is breathe slow enough, deep enough into your lungs that you begin to breathe the same tone as your body. So you're inhaling a little to your navel, a little bit to the intercostal muscles at the rib cage, and a little bit to your upper chest. Those three areas: navel, rib cage, upper chest. You need to feel a bit of movement on the inhale and the exhale. And don't worry about the depth. The natural breath is all varying depths. So sometimes you're going to breathe deep, other times slow, and everything in between. So the depth of your breath doesn't matter. The fact that you're engaging those three areas, it means you're breathing the full lung. Not always the depth of the full lung, but you're breathing the full lung. It's moving. And that tone in your lung is matching the tone in your body. Use your intuition. Whatever you think it is, that's what it is. And that your breath and your physical center of gravity in your body are swaying at the same time. And it's just a beautiful way to physically center, energetically center, and notice how calming it is for your mind. It's actually very, very calming. It allows you to let your thoughts begin to move at the same pace as your breath. And your thoughts are moving at the same pace as the flow of your body. It's just really, really nice. So you're not controlling the thoughts in the sense of trying to change them. You're just actually slowing them down. And as your thoughts slow down, you find it's much easier to come away from the mind screen, come away from the thoughts, and it just allows you to come into the mind field, and you just get that greater sense of awareness. You're watching, makes it easy for you to listen, to feel. So it feels nice. It's a nice feeling. And nice and gently coming into your center. And if there's any aches, look, you massage them out. You find yourself resisting, is massage out the resistance. So it's a lovely way to physically release out the struggle, release out the suffering, release out the hurt, and at the same time bringing yourself back into that beautiful connection. And it's just a lovely massage. And it's the same at an energetic level. Just bring yourself back to that lovely feeling. And you're just feeling rather than struggling with the emotion of things, the resistance in it, the emoting, the pushing and pulling. So whatever you are feeling, allow yourself to just genuinely feel it. It's not right, not wrong. It's not good, it's not bad. That you're just giving yourself the space to be aware in it, giving yourself the space to feel yourself, and to be grounding yourself in that physicalness of the moment as well. And then whatever's happening right now is just you're engaging with it. And whatever's happening in yourself, whatever's happening in the room and the building and the world around you. And you get the beautiful sense of spatial awareness. So notice where you are in the room you're in, and then the room itself, and then notice the spatial awareness of the building you're in, the street you're in. And a lovely thing to do is notice the sounds outside and the sensations inside. So from your mind's eye, between your eyebrows, is the sensations you feel in your body. Pick one and begin to notice the distance between your mind's eye and the sensation in your body. Like I can feel the muscles on my lower back a little bit on the right side. And I'm observing from my mind's eye the distance and then the space in between. I'm just being aware of that spatial awareness in my body, as an example. And again, use your intuition. Whatever you think it is, that's what it is. Same with the sounds outside, the distance between you and the sound, and then the space in between. And again, whatever you think it is, that's what it is. And you're just opening up your spatial awareness. And again, you're opening up the mind field. So they're making the mind field bigger, and then you're bringing it full of awareness. So now you're becoming mindful. You get a beautiful sense of your mind opening up. But then notice how your energetic field opens up, that field of feeling. You feel a much bigger space in yourself, the capacity to feel. Same in your body is you feel the space in your body open up, the ease with which you can flow around your muscles, the ease with which you're flowing around your joints, that wonderful connection through the floor, and that natural tone that gives you a lift up. It's just opening the body. And as you sway around, it's that lovely sense of spaciousness and free space, easy space in the body. Now you're doing all this, pow, with full awareness. You're doing it right now, and you know you're doing it right now. How do you know? Because you're focusing on everything that's happening right now. It's all about what's happening right now, and you observing it, you feeling it, you listening to it. Your consciousness is with that experience. So now, whatever else is there within yourself, is let it be there. Give it your attention. Give it your energy. Like all of us, we all want to be recognized, know it to be true, and we all want to be felt. Know that to be true. And then allow yourself to be recognized and felt. Whatever mood, state of mind, thought, feeling, if it's a memory, whatever, it doesn't matter what it is. If you're thinking about the shopping, is know it to be true. That's what you're thinking of, and then feel it. That's what your experience is. We're not controlling what we let in. We're not controlling it as it comes in, and we're not controlling it as it leaves. But we are controlling ourselves. So you're controlling yourself to be present and to feel and to listen and to hold that space open. Now we're going to do one more thing, just one, is remember the conversation about absolute potential. Is the rock has the potential to become sentient. That's the truth of it. It has all the elements that we have in us. It has consciousness. It's just we have more consciousness. But it has the potential for that. So if the rock has the potential to become sentient, all of your subconscious mind and all the things in your subconscious mind also have the potential to be sentient, to awaken. That we can see our suffering and free it consciously. We can see our hurt and free it consciously. We can see that beautiful connection in ourselves, going back to that beautiful innate sense, that natural state within us, our authentic state. We have that potential too. It's all there. It's just, we've got to tap into it. To do that, we have to hold the potential of all that for ourselves. And that's you tapping into your unconscious state. And that is part of what we are, part of our experience, is you are that potential. And then just holding it open. Just letting that potential be there. And then letting the story unfold. Whatever comes in, let it in. greet it at the door like an old friend. Let it come in, say goodbye like an old friend, as an example. And then just for a couple of minutes, we're just going to allow ourselves to sit in that potential, observe, listen, feel, and then anything new that appears, something that you hadn't noticed, something that you hadn't felt, something that you hadn't seen it that way. If any of that comes in, just allow yourself to recognize it, that that's insight. That's something new. That's the potential becoming something. And it's becoming part of your truth story. So now the potential of your truth story is coming through a little piece at a time in the newness of things. And it doesn't matter how small that newness is. It really doesn't. It's just a willingness to be receptive and open to it. So for a couple of minutes, just allow yourself to be in that state. And nice and gently, just bringing yourself back to the conversation in the room. Nice and gently opening your eyes. And then, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for teasing this out. Keep doing the practice. Keep teasing it out. And then next week is I'll have a chat. I'll bring in. What am I bringing in? 5 elements. We'll do the 5 elements, and I'll layer the 5 elements into that potential. As we layer the 5 elements into potential, it'll give the subconscious mind grounds to ground into, like the earth element, the fluidness, and the expansion and contraction. is we'll get into how to actualize. We need all the elements in life. Think about all the elements in life. It's what we actualize with. So our ability to master all the elements, it gives the subconscious mind reference points. So anything in our subconscious mind, when it can find the ground, now it comes to reality easier. When it allows itself to flow more freely, it's able to untie itself from binds. And when it's able to expand and contract, it's able to be more adaptable. Just as an example. But it'll be a fascinating conversation when we tease it out. But for now, thank you very much. I know I'm over time. That's the way it goes. I will see you next week, or I'll see you on Wednesday for alignment or Friday for restorative. And Mahala's on Tuesday and Thursday. Thank you.